I'm Dr. John Ford, Director of the PhD program in Business Administration and a Professor of Marketing and International Business. I am presenting on preparing future faculty on selling yourself on the job market. What's really important for the student to remember who's approaching the job market is that most experiences have been inefficient and ineffective for doctoral students. What's really important is to think through the process really carefully. What it really should entail is matching up the abilities of the individual, their interests, their expectations, with the proper universities. This has been a problem because most students just simply throw out CVs and send cover letters to many, many different universities, and this is not an effective way to go about doing this. You have to have a clear understanding of what your own particular strengths and weaknesses are and try to match yourself up with the proper university so that you're in a position where you are the answer to their needs. So what the hard part is for the student in the beginning is to try and actually narrow the pool of schools rather than go for everyone. This really should entail, to be effective, some kind of a selling process, and those of us in the marketing field believe that the most effective of all of these is the 7 steps of the Xerox selling process. And this involves a series of steps, and if you follow these things, it'll help you, at least it enhances your ability to be successful when trying to present yourself as the solution to the problem that all of these universities have, which is that they need good faculty. So the first step in this process is called prospecting and qualifying. And the key to this step is, this is the identification of the appropriate institutions, the ones that really make sense, not to go for everybody, but to find out those specific institutions that you really do believe are a good fit and that are in an area that you really would like to settle. So you look at the geographic area, you look at the teaching expectations, the research expectations, the service expectations. Try to make sure this is the kind of place that you want to be. You don't want to waste everybody's time, as I said before, with just flooding the market with letters and CVs, cover letters and CVs. And the worst thing to do, and having been an executive recruiter, I can tell you this is really key to the individuals getting this, is not to send a generic cover letter, because that's not going to help you at all. You really want to present yourself and match up your strengths and abilities with the individual universities and their needs. So it's really important that you look and understand those. Now, another major step in this process is to try and understand what that ad is that you're responding to. So you'll look to see what the universities are looking to hire and look to see exactly what those positions entail. And that tells, in most cases, what kind of specialty areas they're looking for in your subject field. And so what you want to do is not be immediately screened out because you don't meet the wants and needs of the institution. It's all marketing, and what you have to remember is you're matching yourself to the target audience in this case. So you're basically packaging yourself to the needs of the specific institution involved. So what you've got to do is make it easier for them to make that choice. And so what you want to do is customize yourself to that specific institution and their needs. So if you understand what the ad says and you present yourself effectively so that you match up your own personal goals with the goals of the institution, the point is that the more you know about the institution, the better you are, because then you can actually present yourself effectively. Now, the second step of the process is the pre-approach, and this is where you do your homework. First step is just weeding down the institutions and coming up with a subset that's more effective. With the pre-approach, what you're doing is now you are finding out everything you can about the institution specifically that you've chosen now. And this is where you really go and do your homework. You go to the websites, you find out everything you can about their students, their faculty, their mission statements, all of these types of things, so that you're in the best possible position to be able to present yourself to them. Now, This means you got to go and find out. If you want to make an impression on the faculty in these institutions, who are the ones who are probably going to be interviewing you, the key is going to be to understand what they're doing in terms of their research, what they've written in terms of books, what they've done recently. These are the kinds of things that help you so that you're in a position to build an actual relationship with these individuals. So you want a rapport, you want a relationship, and the more you know about them, the more that you've got the potential for actually building this kind of relationship. Now, the third step is called the approach, and this entails the first actual face-to-face meeting. So at this point, you're in an interview, or you're approaching an interview process with someone from your target university. Maybe this is at a national meeting, maybe this is at a special regional meeting, whatever. This is an opportunity for you to first actually meet face-to-face with someone representing that target university. Now, what's really important to remember at this point is this concept of cognitive dissonance or mental alarm bells, because what you don't want to do is set off any alarm bells in the heads of those individuals that are going to be interviewing you. And what really becomes important then is to not disconfirm any expectations that they have. Now, one of the things that will be involved certainly is how you look. Dress and act professionally. One of the things that you may not realize is that 75% of any transaction between a buyer and seller is actually body language. So you have to be very careful to sit upright, look interested, not slouch, make sure that you've answered thoughtfully. These kinds of things are extremely important. You also have to remember that these universities and these interviewers are dealing with many individuals and trying to weed down to a handful that they're going to then bring to campus. And this might be starting off with 200 VITAs that they're then weeding down to maybe 30 or 40 that they're then going to try and interview at some point in a public meeting setting, and then allow them to choose 3 to 5 for on-campus interviews. All right, the next step is the actual presentation. This is where you actually discuss your offering for them. Now, the key here is that you don't want a canned presentation. You don't want a canned pitch, because what's going to be important is that you present yourself as a solution to their problem. You are acting as a problem solver. And what really is important now is to hear what they have to say, as well as to present yourself as the solution. And what that means is you have the description of the ad and their needs that you've looked at, that you've seen through public media. Now the question for you will be, what does their ad not tell you that might help you to understand their needs even more specifically? And so what you want to do is get them to describe the position in greater detail. And you listen thoughtfully, and then you respond with how you are the solution to their problems in that case. All right, so what you're doing, remember this, you're marketing yourself. You have to be thoughtful, but you have to also be enthusiastic. One of the things they don't want to see is for you to mumble, they don't want you to ramble, they don't want you to act as though you don't care about this. You have to be energetic, you have to be enthusiastic, but then you have to also not go over the top. So you have to be careful in a nice balance, but look interested. And remember, you are the one selling yourself. They're not selling themselves to you. So you really have to be careful about speaking thoughtfully and not trying to lose them along the way, making sure that they're there with you. Now, the fifth step is one that many people don't even think about, and this is what we call the handling of objections. What's important now is, this is where you can lose credibility if you haven't thought through this. This is where you have to think about all the possible things that they could ask you in this interview. Be prepared, because if you don't have an answer to a question that they ask you, you've lost credibility. And if that happens several times, you've completely lost credibility in that case. So obviously, one of the things to have to do in this case is to try and think through what your strengths and weaknesses are. And be sure that you've thought about exactly what this job is going to require and what you will need to do in your capacity in this job. You'll also want to be sure that you have thought of all the possible objections they could have to why you might not fit their need. So you always want to be thinking honestly about what it is that you do, what you have to offer, what your strengths and also what your weaknesses are. Now, one of the things that we've found in marketing is one of the things you don't want to do is come across as though you're arrogant or glib in the way that you respond. So you really want to think and answer meaningfully. Obviously, you don't want to just blurt out an answer right away because that makes it look more like you're just following some kind of memorized series of responses in that case. Another thing that we found in the literature, which is really important about the way the mind works, is that if a negative is raised, admit it. Don't gloss it over or say it's not a negative. The important thing we find is that if they raise a criticism, admit the criticism if it's true, and then you can get them to, see, if they've given you credibility automatically because you've admitted a negative, then you can work to try and bring around the more positive side of yourself and why you really do fit this need well. You don't want to avoid, though, if they say, especially with a question like, what are your weaknesses? Be sure to know what your weaknesses are. And believe me, we've all got weaknesses, so think that through carefully. Because if you say, I have no weaknesses, you are completely discredited at that point. They'll know that you haven't, that you're not being honest with them. Now, the sixth step is called closure. And what closure deals with is you might have them absolutely eating out of the palm of your hand. You've presented yourself as the solution to the problem that they have. What you may feel uncomfortable about, and this is really important that you push for this, is to have something to show for this process at the end. One of the things that you may not realize is that you have to ask them for the next step. You have to have something to show for this process. So what this involves, and we found with salespeople, what they really have to have are two things innately to make them successful. And these are hard things because they're opposites of one another, and they're always in balance. They have to be kept in balance. They are ego drive, and that is the confidence and drive to succeed. This also can come across as aggressiveness. This is, the salesperson wanting to be successful. This is, I want that sale. And in your case, you certainly want that job. But at the same time, you have to also think about this opposite extreme, which is what we call empathy, which is the idea of being able to put yourself in the other person's shoes, to think like they are, to be sensitive to their way of looking at things, and to back off when you think you've gotten a little too strong in that case. So it's a balancing act that's going on in this selling process. So one of the things you have to remember, though, is that at some point in time, and this is what this closure step is all about, is that you've got to ask for something in return. So what does that entail? It means that you've got to then ask about the next step in the process. You've got to then say, I'd like an on-campus interview. When can we set that up? I think that I'm really the answer to the needs that you have. I think there's a nice fit between my skills and abilities and your needs. And this is when you certainly want to be able to ask for that next meeting, because you need to be in their final choice set. You need to be always in their thought process. So what you've got to do is ask for that. And if you don't ask for it, simply you're not going to get anything as a result of that. And they will, in some cases, forget about you. So one of the things, too, here that's important is thinking of the fact that we have to sell ourselves. You're selling yourself to the university. The university is not selling itself to you. They don't have to. They're the ones who you need to sell yourself to, which means that you need to present yourself effectively. And one of the things that we certainly find is marketing does not mean sending out literature to potential customers and waiting for them to respond. It means you have to go out and do something concrete in this case. And what you've got to do is you've got to ask for something. Now, the last step in this process is what we call the follow-up. Now, as I said, you want to be in their final choice set. We call it TOMA, T-O-M-A, which is top of mind awareness in marketing. And the idea there is you got to keep yourself on the top of their minds. And what you need to do then is check in every so often. Now, that does not mean all the time checking with them, because that can be seen often as a nuisance. But it's occasionally checking in and just saying, you know, I still am very interested in your university. I would really like this position, and please keep me in mind. Certainly, one of the things to do immediately after an interview has taken place is to do a handwritten note, thank you note, to send to the interviewer or any of the interviewers that participate in that process. One of the things that students may not realize is that email is never going to be appropriate. And the reason for that is because it's informal, it's impersonal, and many people treat it as insufficient. Therefore, if you think that you're responding properly by sending an email, you're not. You want a handwritten letter thanking them for the time that they spent with you. Also, what you want to do is remind them that you're a good fit for them. You have matched up your skills and abilities with their university. And the better you've been able to present that, and that means a lot of customization of yourself to that university, the better off you'll be. Final note on this follow-up process is really you've got to have confidence in yourself. But at the same time, and this is that ego drive empathy problem, is that you can't come across too forcefully, or that will be seen as somewhat of a problem. I'd like to wrap up with a series of summary statements and just some kind of key points that I think might be of help to you in this process. All right. One of the things to remember is dress the part. Look the way you should, professional. Be prepared to make the right impression. One of the things that you may find is that individuals who are not thinking carefully about matching up the job description to the individuals may make up their mind too quickly based on appearance alone. Well, at least what you can do is be prepared, look the part, and then not turn them off at that point. Also, do your homework on the schools, the faculty. Know their colleges, their universities. Know everything about them so that you look like you care. And that's one of the things that many don't do, and you will stand out quite successfully showing that you've done these things. Also, contingency plan. The idea is think through all the things that they could ask you, all the things that they could raise as criticisms. Always have answers for those things that you can present to them. Certainly, the more that you know, too, about the individuals who may be interviewing you, the better off you're going to be. Because one of the things we find with the pre-approach stage is that if you've done your homework, you may actually find something about the individual that can help you build rapport with them. In other words, something you found in their websites, looking at what maybe their interest statements are. Maybe they have a child that's done something similar to what your child is interested in. Any of these things can serve as the basis for relationship building and can be very effective, because what you want is you want them to feel very positively about you in this experience, and you want a relationship to be built. Now, you certainly want to thank them for their time, and you don't want to waste it at all. So the more that you know about them, the more that they will feel that their time is not being wasted. They have many, many candidates that they're talking to, particularly in these kinds of public meetings opportunities. So you want to make sure that you come across positively and not be seen as wasting their time. Also, add value to yourself. One of the things you're selling is your ability to publish, your ability to do service for them, and most importantly, your ability to teach for them. So make sure that you have good teaching evaluations that you can present to them. Use the student evaluations that have been presented for your courses. Make changes. Try to enhance yourself so that you're getting the best possible teacher evaluations, because that's something that every university is going to need you to do for them. So you want to be sure that you have that covered so that you have value that you can present for them. Also, the more that you can actually have publications on your vita before you actually go to the university, the more that you can prove to them that you can do the research that they're going to need you to do. So these are things that certainly can enhance your success. Remember, too, that networking is very important. So that means go to professional meetings, join professional organizations. They often have student discounts that are available. When you join these organizations, you'll be interacting with individuals. Some of these individuals may be the ones who are interviewing you in the future. And certainly the fact that you know common friends and scholars may be a way for you to gain credibility in the eyes of the interviewers that you're dealing with. So attending conferences is very important. Getting a feel for what academic life is like in that type of setting is very helpful. Joining professional organizations is important, especially when they have student discounts that are usually available for student members, so that you're getting the publications of the organization. You're in many ways understanding what the latest trends are within your academic discipline. Also realize that the more that you have to offer in a proven track record, the more that you will enhance your perceived value in their eyes. Build a relationship. Make them feel like you are the answer to the problems that they have, and the problem is they need good faculty. So be that faculty person that they need. And the more that you prepare yourself in this case, the more successful you'll be. Good luck.